Welcome. This is Kristen Crabtree with the Lance Edwards Group. We have a special treat for you today. We're interviewing a new apartment champion who is here to share his story about how he closed his first multifamily deal after working with Lance Edwards System. Please help me welcome Wren.
Thank you, Kristen.
Okay, so I'm going to start this with the recap of his first deal. It was 4 units. And he did have some prior real estate investment experience, which we'll get into. He started in real estate when he found a book at a garage sale that had a guy sitting on a Mercedes in front of an apartment building. And he doesn't remember the exact title, but it was something like How I Made $1 Million in Real Estate. And he read the book and he was hooked. His strategy that he uses is the fix and flip. His first deal was his first deal after starting Lance's course was a 4-plex in Tucson, Arizona, and he's located in Phoenix. So it was just a couple hours away from him. He liked the deal, kind of an interesting story that he may get into, but a wholesaler was flipping it. A wholesaler was flipping the contract and couldn't find a buyer. He kept dropping the price, and before he ran out of his inspection period, Wren took the assignment for $2,000 over his contract price. And that's probably part of the reason he made really good money on this deal, which I'll talk about in a second. So he invested a little over $1,200 of his own money. The rest of it was financed with a private money loan. The property did need work, and his earnings was almost $80,000. So pretty impressive. And I can't wait to hear more. Okay, so let me close some things out and get to where I can see Wren's face. Okay. So Wren, before we get started, share with me a little about your personal and professional background.
Well, I come from a construction background. So my father's a general contractor. So all of my life I've been involved in construction. So I understand the rehab side very well, and I actually enjoy it. And then, like I said, it was a couple of years out of high school, I bumped into that book about real estate, and that hooked me. And I wish I could remember the name of the book. And if somebody ever thinks of what it is and sends it to me, I'll send some kind of a prize. I don't know what it'd be, but I'd love to find out what that book was. So
you found that book when you were just out of high school?
Yeah, I think I was 19 or 20. Yeah. So I was not old enough or smart enough to know that I couldn't do it.
Fantastic. Okay, so I sort of cut you off. So go ahead and tell us more.
Well, so that's it. I've bought and sold a lot of flip houses, maybe close to 40, and so quite a few of those. But my very first property I ever picked up was a 4-plex. And I bought it with the intention that I was going to live in one of the units and I was going to rent out the other 3. This was at a time whenever the real estate market was very depressed, and you could, in fact, it was an REO. I bought it from the bank, and so these things weren't selling, and it was fully occupied. I didn't know anything about the Landlord-Tenant Act, so I showed up day one when I owned the property and notified everybody that I'm the new property owner and here's your new rental rate. And I was educated very fast about leases and the fact that you couldn't raise rent. And so I made every possible bad mistake you could make. And it was a great experience through all the bad. So I got a college degree right off the bat on what not to do in small apartment rental. And so I kind of got scared away from apartments at that point. I was like, I'm just sticking with houses. And I did for many years. And then I bumped into Lance and his book, and I read his book, and it resonated. It reminded me of why I wanted to get involved in real estate in the first place. And so I took his course. I took the boot camp. I signed up for literally everything he offered. I jumped in full force, and that was my first deal that we talked about in Tucson.
Awesome. So it sounds like since you read the book at such a young age, there's been probably some time periods in there that you can break down for us. So like, when was that very first 4-plex that you got schooled on? When did you start working with Lance? How soon after working with Lance did you, continue and so forth?
Well, so that first 4-plex was 1986. So there were some brand new tax changes. The laws had changed, and a lot of people that were investing in small apartments dumped them. they didn't keep them anymore. And so the banks took a lot of these properties back. And so you could rent a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in Phoenix, Arizona for $250 a month at that time. It was terrible. You get a 6-month lease, 2 or 3 months free rent. And so it was a difficult time to be a landlord. So that trained me that I didn't have any business messing with that. But I still liked house deals. So I bought a lot of houses and flipped for many, many years. So I didn't run into lands until maybe it was at 2020, I guess. Can't remember for sure, but I think it was 2020. So I think it was the middle of the pandemic. In fact, I know it was because I remember I was quarantined in my bedroom when I was watching the first boot camp on Zoom, which is awesome. It's, great when you can sit in your pajamas and you can learn about real estate. I mean, how much better can it get? And so that was a long time between doing small apartment deals. My first fourplex was in '86. My second fourplex is in 2020.
Great. Okay. That fills in a lot of gaps for me. Thank you so much. So back, I know that in 1986-ish, you got started, you got interested in real estate because of that book. What motivated you to, proceed with it again, to reach out to lands and to start with small apartments again?
I don't think I had ever lost the dream. I don't think it really ever died. I think when you're set on a course and you have a dream, especially when you're young, I don't think we lose that dream. Sometimes we stuff it down and we start lying to ourselves and tell us that we can't do something, or we don't know enough about it. And so we kind of hold it back, but it's never gone. I think by reading Lance's book, it awoke the dream again. But more than that, it showed me that, yeah, I could do it. He has so many different plays that you can, pick one. The book is full of awesome techniques and ways to go about it and really good, honest methods to be successful. And then the fact that you can tap into Lance and all of his training, why not do it? And that was it. So it woke me back up, but yet it also made me realize that I could do it. And I had somebody that could kind of walk me through the path. He's certainly done it. And he's an awesome teacher. And so with his teaching and confidence behind, it was very easy to go out there and grab that deal. Okay,
great. So you talked about the dream. What are you trying to solve through real estate investing? Or when you can answer that with now or when you first got really interested in it?
Well, I guess it's probably the same thing. I like the idea of having, working for myself. Sort of. I realize I work for every one of my tenants. I work for everybody that's involved in the property. I work for my wife, and that's important. But I enjoy being able to make a difference, and you really do. You do have the ability to make a difference, both in the lives of the families that live in your properties, maybe the families who invest in your properties. So like I mentioned, I do private loans. And so there are people that take their money that might not be earning the kind of return that it could get. And so what I call lazy money, and we put it to work for a short little while. And we put it in a property that helps, create housing for families. And that's what I focus on. I focus on kind of affordable housing for families. And that's what I look for.
That's a noble effort. Do you have any, specific sort of tales or stories that you can share about either the investors or the tenants that you've helped? And you don't have to, I'm just wondering.
Well, every time you pick up a property, and I would think that property in Tucson, for example, as soon as a new buyer comes along, they're all nervous. They know there's going to be changes. They're going to think it's that dumb kid fresh out of high school that's showing up with a brand new lease and, bumping the rent like triple. And I've only ever tried to do that one time. That was my first time. And since then, of course, I leave the rents alone. Now I know that is not the way that you maximize the return, but I want them to season. So I actually know when I'm picking up a property, I'm probably going to hang on to it for about a year at least. And so 8 months to a year, maybe even 2 years is going to be my hold. And so I don't do anything with the tenants for a little while, at least 3 months. I let them get used to, there's a new owner. They kind of can calm down. They can think without emotion. And then we start figuring out our plan to move forward with the property and what we're going to do with it typically.
Okay, great. This is a question that I ask everyone, and with you, it might be a little harder to answer because you've had such a long history and track record with real estate. So I'll let you answer it from whatever time period you want to. But what was your financial situation before you began investing?
The 1986, I was broke. I worked construction. I was pouring concrete. I probably had nothing, and it was an REO. I brought in a partner that had the down payment money, and my model was horrendous. I was completely wrong on every possible metric. I was able to pay my partner back. Ultimately, got out of the property with just a little bit of hair left, but not much. And then on this last deal, financially, I'm in a lot better shape. And so we had plenty of money. Probably didn't even have to take on a partner on that one. But I did, because using other people's money to me just makes more sense. You can't lose big checks if you don't write big checks. And so I give somebody else the opportunity that doesn't have the time or the experience or knowledge, that they can take that money and apply it to a deal. I have the time, experience, and the knowledge, thanks to Lance mostly. And so I can kind of leverage that, and we both win. It's good for everybody.
That makes a lot of sense. So you said that your financial situation is better. Do you have a specific financial goal where you want to go to now?
As far as income go, or as far as self-worth?
Income, money in the bank, number of doors. Again, however you want to answer that.
See, I don't hang on to them so that it doesn't become number of the doors. Once upon a time, I thought I was going to, and I believe that there's a lot of value in holding the properties. Certainly a lot of less taxation in holding the properties. But for some reason, I get bored really fast. And so I find that it just works really great. I love fixing them up, improving them, kind of make them the best that I can make them in a short little time. I usually like to leave a little bit of meat on the bone, sell them to the next person, give them a good deal, and move on and find the next. So I'm probably not used to thinking it'd be 100 doors. Now right now I think I own 6 doors. And so that's not a lot. But that's just about right for me, and they're in different process of moving through the system. I'd like to make $1 million a year, and I've come close. I've never actually done it, but I've come very close, and maybe this year.
That's exciting. So what's your ultimate dream? You said, $1 million a year is sort of your annual goal. Do you have an ultimate dream you'd like to share?
I like just living a good life. And so I don't really have any major dreams. I mean, my wife and I, we like to travel. I love doing things, but I'm probably never going to quit doing what I do. Or say, what are you going to do when you retire? I am never going to retire. That sounds horrible to me. And I've taken time off, and I love doing deals. I love the what if game. Every time I look at a property, analyze a property, I get excited about it. And so I love it. So I'm just going to keep doing that.
Okay, so doing more of the same and doing more traveling. You're almost living your dream now, it sounds like.
I think I am. Yeah, I think I am. The cool thing is, especially the world has gotten smaller. So everywhere you go, you can be looking at a real estate deal. And so everywhere I go, I'm looking at a deal. Now, my wife tolerates it. She doesn't love it, but she allows it. So when we travel, then I'm always want to check out a deal, or I'll go look at a deal. I might talk to a realtor in the area. And you just never know, because you can invest anywhere now. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be local. The great deals are where the great deals are. And that's where you should go and invest. It doesn't matter in your backyard. Maybe you start in your backyard so you get comfortable with it, but very short period of time, there are probably better markets than your backyard worth investing in.
So were there specific ways that you were hoping, and again, you can answer this with, back when you were 18, 19, or something more current, it's up to you. But in what ways were you hoping that real estate investing would change your life?
Freedom. Yeah, freedom. I thought for sure that if I owned, How I Made a Million, that book of Make $1 Million, investing in small apartments or real estate or whatever it was. And I know the guy was investing in apartments because that's exactly what he was talking about. And of course, that's what I went out and tried to duplicate. I wanted to drive the Mercedes. I wanted to own the apartment building, and I wanted freedom.
Okay, great. You did the one apartment, did a bunch of single family residences, wanted to move into apartments again. Where did you get stuck? Why did you reach out to Lance? Why weren't you able to get going on your own?
Actually, I wasn't even thinking about it. It wasn't even on my radar anymore. I had gotten burned enough on that I was just never going back. I had 4 professional tenants. And so, and they knew the rules way better than the guy that owned the building knew the rules. And so, they whipped me up pretty hard. And so, I kind of tucked my tail and I ran away from it. I didn't run away from real estate, but, I ran away and just stuck on single family. That was really, really safe. I'm only going to deal with families that maybe I even consider there was a higher caliber of tenant. And that's not exactly a true statement, but it seemed like it for a while. And then I was just mostly flipping. So I wasn't even dealing. I was so scared of tenants that I didn't even, there's no way in the world I would do anything. Just make them really nice and sell them. So, and then I can't remember how I bumped into Lance, whether it was one of his advertisements. I'm sure it probably was. And it struck a chord. So I bought the book. I enrolled in the boot camp. I enrolled in the next, everything else that was available, and kind of I enrolled in coaching. I took advantage of that so that somebody could who's been there doing it regularly could kind of walk me through the process and maybe help me even overcome some of my past burn or fears that I had.
All right. So that leads to my next question, which is around obstacles. So obviously when you were 18, 19, there were probably some financial obstacles, as you went along. You've mentioned fear of tenants. So what obstacles have you faced, during this process?
Well, like back on that very first deal, 1 month I had a $1,200 water bill, and I wasn't cash flowing. The property was a negative. It probably was costing me about $800 a month to keep it. And I had a $1,200 water bill. That's a big hurdle to jump over. And so learning how to manage that, learning how to make sure that, hey, you don't get that type of stuff. I mean, going through regularly inspecting and make sure the toilets are not just running, 90 to 100% of the time. That particular unit had washers and dryers in them. Well, I'm pretty sure that my tenants were washing everybody's clothes in the entire street. They're washing the cars out in the parking lot, and who cares about turning off the hose, right? So there were a lot of things that I had to learn about how to implement rules to stay on the property. And so later on, now I know how to do all of that. And so I don't have those type of problems. One of the things that I do, and like on the one that I just did in Tucson, for land, I just did, it was, what's that, almost 3 years now. But, I let the tenants fix the property up. And so we had a game plan when we saw the property. Here's what it needed. We had a long list of things to do, and we went and put a budget on each of those items. And then we allowed the property itself to pay for all of those repairs. As the tenants paid the rent and things, so we accrued enough money, we'd do the next thing. And then we do the next thing. So the tenants actually fixed up their own property. No money came out of our pocket for it. And I love that. And so that's, to me, is the neatest way to do it. Naturally, then you raise the rents accordingly, because once they're fixed up, they're worth more. And then you put it on the market and you've raised the rents, you fixed it up, and the property's perfect, and somebody will come and pay you $80,000 more than what you paid for it. So it's nice.
That is nice. Okay, so we've mentioned some hurdles, and you have a lot of longevity in the business. As you faced hurdles, what made you stick with real estate investing in general? And again, like what was that drive, that attraction towards the small apartments?
I don't think, even though the hurdles, there might be days that are bad days. Tomorrow's a new day, and you can kind of get over it. And so none of them killed the dream. So it seems like there's nothing better to do. What else are you going to do? Go pour concrete? I don't think so. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I don't want to do that one again. So we just keep going. And, they can all be handled. One thing to remember is your tenants are people. They're dealing with issues. And so I believe in talking to them and listening. I'm really careful and cautious about, I'm not a friend, I'm your landlord. And so here's the rules, here's the lease, here's the rules. But I know that I'm human and you are too. And so that really helps. I mean, I'm dealing with a situation right now that the tenants are having some challenges. And so, okay, how do we work through those? And there's a solution. We've just got to be willing to have good communication. If they're talking to me, I'm happy to talk to them. And we can work through those type of situations. And I think that helps on the day to day. And then I try really hard to not take it home at night. Now, I know when you own your building, there's no such a time that, okay, hey, we punch out and we're off the clock. But there's a point where it'll be there tomorrow. So shut it down. Let's have a family time, whatever. It'll be there tomorrow.
Okay. So how has investing impacted other parts of your life? So not the money part, just other areas.
I think it's helped me create a lot of great friendships. I think that through the process, whether, meeting other people that are looking to invest or even other investors, I'm a member of the local RIA here. I attend the meetings. I participate in the different programs. I have a lot of people that I come in contact with that want to invest in real estate too. And I love being a teacher myself. And so I find that I'm happy to share my ideas, the things I've gone through. I have a lot of people that are looking for other investments, and I help kind of walk them through that process as well. And I enjoy it.
Great. What did you hope would happen that hasn't?
Oh, that I get rich. That I'd live on a yacht and sell around the world. I don't know. I think I'm probably happy with the way things have really turned out. I know I'm not done. I know that there's better deals ahead. I wish I'd have bought a 100-unit apartment complex in Memphis, Tennessee in February of 2020. And we had it under contract, and I was just a junior player. I was coming in as the contractor, actually, and we walked away because we were scared of the moratorium on evictions. It made us nervous at 100 units, and what if nobody paid rent? And I wish that we had have bought that property. That was a mistake to not buy it. So sometimes you have those.
Okay. And what's happened that surprised you?
It surprised me. Wow. Probably everything. I think that, you read a book, you think you know what to do. And you're constantly learning something. So I think every single day I realize I don't know everything, and I learn something every day. So probably tomorrow there'll be something surprising. And I was like, oh, wow, that's okay. That's how that works. So I don't know what it is individually, but I think there's a lot.
All right. What excites you about the future and the possibilities it holds, especially now that you've transitioned back into small apartments?
I love where we're at in the market right now. Everybody, the news starts talking real estate's bad and everybody's scared of it. That makes me excited, because the last 2 or 3 years we've been on it's a seller's frenzy, right? And just like everything sold, all the dogs with fleas sold. And so I'm so excited to finally be able to look at a deal, properly analyze it, go through the numbers, have some time to negotiate with the seller, possibly even talk about some creative financing, which I love. To me, that's just the absolute best way to acquire property if I can get it. So I am super excited about where we're at today in the market and where I think we're going. I just know it's not going to last long enough, darn it, because I know how these cycles go. We go around and around, and by the time everybody knows we're gone down, we're going to start going back up again.
Right. Yeah. Cycles. What strengths do you feel you possess that maybe have made this endeavor more easier for you, or more manageable for you, more approachable for you?
I think I have a positive attitude. I think I believe in belief. So I believe that almost all things are possible if we're willing to focus on it, have a goal or a dream, and then work towards it. So I think that has made a big difference.
Okay. And what personal characteristics do you think worked against you in the beginning?
I'm impatient. I want everything right now, like yesterday. And so I'm very, very impatient. And the other thing about me is that I'm not a good delegator. And in order to really grow and to scale a business like this, you have to be able to delegate and get your team. I find because of my impatience, I just thought, heck with it. I'll just do it myself. Well, you can only do it yourself so much in the course of the day. And then only 2 or 3 things actually get done. Whenever maybe 15 or 20 things could have gotten done if I was a better delegator. So that's something I'm working on.
Okay. What's changed about who you are since you started down this path?
Who I am. Well, my wife would tell you that I can't walk into a restaurant without inspecting the building, and I'm always looking at real estate, and I don't care what kind of real estate it is. Frankly, I love all of it, and so I'm probably not the funnest date because she'll see me looking at the floor, and I'll looking at the crack or the lines of in the sidewalk are not straight or there's something flawed, and she'll just say, "Don't say anything." She doesn't want to hear. So that probably has changed the way I look at the world. I'm looking at the sticks and the bricks all the time. And I don't care whether it's a house, a mobile home, a restaurant, a hospital. I enjoy looking at all of the real estate. So I see that. I enjoy architecture now in a way that I probably didn't before. So that's changed me a lot. It changed the way I look at the world.
Can you expand on that a little? Just the idea of looking at the world differently. You talked about some of the tangible things, flaws in the property, improvements that could be made, cool architecture. But is there anything you can add to that comment?
Well, I was with a friend a while back, and we were driving around, and I can't remember what the conversation was, but I pointed out a building, and I told him, I said, somebody owns that. Somebody, whether it be a group of people or just one individual, owns that building right there, and that building means a lot to them. That they've invested in it, they want to improve it, and the thing about buildings, they're not static. They're not as stationary or stable as people think they are. They're either living or dying. The landscaping is either growing or it's dying off. There's always something that can be improved, regardless of how perfect it is, except for the day one, whenever you got the certificate of completion on the construction, but the very next day there's already some flaw that needs to be repaired. So there's always an improvement that can be made, and I love that part of it. But then I also love thinking about the people who own them and really care about them, that really love those properties. And that friend of mine, he actually called me up like about a week later, and he says, that comment you made, he says, I never thought about the fact that every time I drive by a building or a house or somebody owns it. And I guess when we see a house, we know, somebody owns that house. But when we look at a strip mall, we don't think about somebody owns the strip mall. When we look at apartment complex, we don't really think about somebody that owns the apartment complex. It's probably Lance, but if it's not Lance, well, or it's one of his friends. So somebody owns it, and somebody really cares about it. And I think that that's really neat. That I love the personal side of the structure of the building, and then I love trying to see how to make them better. It's my favorite thing. And that's why when I talk about, I look for dogs with fleas. I look for a dog with fleas that I can, with just a little bit of grooming, I can turn it into a show poodle. And that's exactly what I love to do with real estate. So that's why fix and flip for me is the absolute perfect model. Because I'll find something that's got a lot of deferred maintenance. Somebody's owned it and loved it once upon a time, but they've gotten tired. Maybe the tenants burned them, and they got tired of the toilet issues that they were dealing with all night long, which I never have. We don't deal with that stuff. That it'll be there tomorrow. And so we learn to do it. So I love dogs with fleas that you can turn into show poodles. And that is, for me, that is a fun game.
Some great meat in there. Thank you for those stories. So in the process, have you discovered anything about yourself that surprised you?
Yeah, probably daily, but I don't. We're our own worst critic. And so I'll hear people say stuff about me that I don't believe. And so that's the surprise of how some people they don't see the insecurity on the inside. You say, wow, you're so confident. You're so, no, I'm not. I make friends easy. I'm a very shy person. It's very difficult for me to even pick up the phone or to try to talk to somebody or send out the letters. And then I'm afraid somebody might actually respond to my letters, so like I did all of the postcards with Lance, and I had people call. It's like, it scares the devil out of me to take those phone calls, and I don't know what to say. And I still get nervous to this day, and I've done a lot of deals. And I guess I'm glad that that's the case, because that makes it, if it wasn't for that, maybe it'd just be a horrible job. It's this exciting little nervous little experience every single time. And that makes it fun. I get nervous knocking up and introducing myself to my tenants. Hey, I'm your new, which I almost, to these days, I usually represent the ownership, and, I'm the property manager. I represent the ownership. I'm a little bit cautious about letting somebody know that I actually own the building. I've found that kind of has burned me in the past. They always want something for free at that point. They don't want to pay rent all of a sudden anymore.
Okay. So I want you to imagine yourself 5 years from now. How has your life changed?
I want to do bigger deals. I would like to do larger, probably, 100-unit properties. To me, and I think Lance has taught this pretty well, just adding another zero behind the units. Well, a 4-unit, well, a zero is a 40. The truth is, it's kind of the same process. The spread's a little bit bigger. Maybe you have to bring in more investors to make it happen, or the profit, it's not 80,000, maybe it's 800,000. So that's cool. And so I'm looking for bigger deals now, and that's a little bit more of my focus is on the bigger deals. I still have some smaller deals as they pop in, but I want to be involved in bigger projects. And I've gotten involved in a few syndications with some other that are doing it. I've narrowed my focus down specifically to multifamily residential. I have some experience in commercial, office, and industrial, and I'm only doing multifamily residential, because that's what I want to focus on, and that's the type of properties I want to be involved with.
So we've already established that you're essentially living your dream right now. Aside from just the thrill and joy of doing the transaction, is there anything else that you hope in 5 years will have materialized in your life?
Maybe not so much in my life, but there's a few other people that are coming along that are wanting to learn, and that I spend time with on a weekly basis, usually phone calls or emails, they're wanting to walk that path as well. And I'm hoping to see them do several deals. There's a young couple that's, they've been saving up some money. They've got their down payment money saved up. I believe in the philosophy of, you look at 100 deals, you make offers on 10 and you buy one. They've analyzed about 75 deals. Now, those numbers don't have to be exact, but the wife emailed me just 2 nights ago. Hey, we've looked at our 75th deal. I'm like, it's time for making some offers. We've got to get some offers out there. So I want to see them be successful. I would love to see them have, and they want to hold. They don't want to follow my model. That's great. In fact, it's probably the better and smarter path. Buy them, cash flow them, as long as they pay the rent and they pay the bills. If you held them for 30 years, I think they'll be better off than I will be.
Gotcha. Perfect. So last question. What advice do you have to offer to others?
Do it. Just do it. I mean, I would absolutely say, you got somebody like Lance, and obviously we're talking about his program, and he's really the reason why you and I are having this conversation. Take advantage of what he's offering. Read the book. Take the boot camp. Probably take the boot camp a couple of times. Honestly, I've been in it 3 times, and there's nothing wrong with that. You will pick up a nugget every single time, and then you're going to go out there, and you got to go out and be willing to make the mistakes. So you've got to make the offers. You've got to take the action steps, and he's going to show you all these. And maybe the problem is, like, he's got so many cool things that you can do. Pick 2. Don't pick all of them. Pick 2. Maybe not 1, but pick 2. And then say, okay, that's what I'm going to focus on, at least for the first year. But take some action. You can buy a property before you're done with your first boot camp. You absolutely can. The Tucson deal was absolutely while I was still just barely wrapping up the boot camp. It was within my 90 days for sure. And it was only because my radar was attuned to finding deals, to seeing deals, that I started noticing this wholesaler, which I was on his list. And so I'd get his emails, and I kept watching the price come down on this. And so I started looking at it for about the third price drop and realized, wait a minute, that's a little fourplex, and it's in Tucson and it's not that far away. And I drove down and looked at it, which I don't even do that anymore. I don't worry about it. I look at the numbers. I make my offer before I ever go walk a property. But that particular time I went and looked at it. And, I've bought 4 cents that I've never seen. I've seen them, but not before I made the offers. Does that make sense? So
Yep.
I would say take action, take advantage of what's being offered. It's the real deal. It'll absolutely take you where you want to go if you're willing to put in the effort.
Great. Awesome. So with Lance Edwards, this is Kristen Crabtree. Please join us again when we interview our next department champion. If you'd like to learn how to be our next department champion, please call our office at 281-667-3638. You're only one deal away.